In this video, we will show you how to replace your front flex hose. On this Ford Fusion, this is part of your braking system located inside of your front wheel well. Let's get into it. Okay friend, let's get started on our job. The first thing we need to do is safely raise and support the front of the vehicle so the wheel's off the ground. Once you've done so, you can continue on to removing all 5 of your 19mm lug nuts and then the wheel. At this point, with the wheel removed, we're going to make our way down to where the bleeder screw is located on the caliper. Commonly, you will find that there's a rubber boot. Go ahead and remove that, give it a quick inspection, set it aside. It's a good idea to reuse that. Continue on with your 8mm headed wrench. We're going to turn this counterclockwise. Let's put a collection bucket under the area. Loosen it just enough that you start seeing a trickle of fluid coming out. Once you start seeing a slow trickle of fluid coming out of this area, we can continue on inside the passenger compartment. We're going to use a pry bar. Depress the brake pedal, hold it down to the floor. Then we'll make our way out here and close up the bleeder screw. We'll make our way back out here. Just double check to make sure it's stopped coming out. Use your 8mm, close your bleeder screw. Once you've done that, continue making your way along the back side of the caliper. We're looking for the banjo bolt, which holds the flex hose to the caliper itself. We'll use our 12mm for this. It is probable that fluid will come out of this area. Remove the banjo bolt, give it a quick inspection and set it aside. You will be reusing it. Take hold of the flex hose, give it a little wiggle and remove it from the caliper. Once you have that off of there, the next thing you want to do is have a look at the back side of the caliper where that flex hose is supposed to go. You may happen to find that the gasket is still on the back of the caliper. If it is, go ahead and use a flathead screwdriver and carefully remove it. Pop that out of place. Quick inspection. You can set that aside for recycling. We'll just inspect the back side of the caliper here. Go ahead and wipe it down. Double check to make sure there's no rust or debris inside the port. After that, we'll continue on with the flex hose itself. I like to look at the very end here where it connects onto the caliper. You may find that you have a gasket on the flex hose itself. If you do, it's okay. We're disposing of the hose and the gaskets anyways. The new hose comes with gaskets. We just want to confirm where each one of those gaskets are. Continue following that flex hose up to its mounting point where it connects to your front strut. We'll follow the flex hose along here. You'll find that you have a 10mm headed mounting bolt. Let's remove that to dislodge this from the strut. With that separated, we'll make our way over towards the front side here. Before we dislodge the flex hose from the body of the vehicle, it's important to make sure you separate it from the brake line. We'll use a 13mm for this. As we're turning this fitting, you want to ensure that the brake line itself isn't twisting at the same time. If it is, use some penetrant and lightly tap on the brake line, being careful not to cause any damage, but you do want to cause vibration to try to break this free from the fitting itself. Once it is broken free, you can continue on with removing the line from the flex hose. This is another area that brake fluid could potentially come out of. Keep that in mind. Once you have that dislodged, continue on to your 10mm headed bolt that's holding this flex hose in place. This is the last thing holding the flex hose in, so go ahead and remove this flex hose once you're done. remove the flex hose from the area. There it is, friend. Now that we have the flex hose out of position, let's give everything a thorough inspection. We want to make sure that the threaded area on the fitting is still in good condition. We'll just give that a nice wipe, double check to make sure nothing makes its way into the line. This looks like it's in good condition. Go ahead and cover that port. We'll continue on by cleaning the mounting point here. A quick inspection, make sure it's not rotted or damaged in any way. Okay, friend, let's get ready to install our brand new front flex hose. We'll take this and put it in position along the back side of the front strut. As we bring this over, we're going to be paying attention to where our mounting bolt will go. We also will have a small locating tab along the back side of the hose. That will need to match up with its corresponding hole. At the same time as paying attention to each of these two things, we also have to pay attention to our brake line. We're going to be aligning that and starting it in by hand before we continue on by tightening up our mounting bolt that holds this in place. Make sure you start in the line by hand so you're sure you are not cross-threading it into the wrong placement. You could cause damage. Let's get this in position. Start in your mounting bolt and snug it up. Double check to make sure that's completely secured. Down at the line, we'll continue with our 13mm wrench. Make sure this is nice and tight. Essentially bottom it out, take it a little bit further, make sure it is properly secured so you will not have any leak. Right there's where it feels as though it wanted to bottom out for me. Double check to make sure that's secure. At this point, we'll follow the flex hose along the rearward side of that front strut. Start bringing this down into position. Swing it up, align the mounting bolt hole, start it in and snug it up. Double check to make sure that's completely secured. Now we can follow that flex hose to where it connects onto the caliper. There we are. Before we move any further, we're going to continue talking about our banjo bolt. This is the bolt that holds the flex hose to that caliper. It's important to make sure you pay close attention to it. Make sure there is no gasket pressed up against here. Go ahead and wipe that down, give it a close inspection. At this point, we're going to continue on with one of our brand new crush gaskets. Take one of those and slide it right onto the banjo bolt. Go ahead and put it right up against the base there. Take this and slide it through the flex hose. Once you have that slid through and you have that gasket in between there, continue on with your gasket on the other side of the flex hose. Now there's a gasket on each side. With having a gasket on each side of this, we'll take that flex hose and put it in position along the back side of the caliper, start this banjo bolt in by hand, and then snug it up. Once you have it snug, go ahead and torque that to 18 foot-pounds. At this point, let's just make sure the flex hose is properly secured at both mounting areas. Once you've done so, go ahead and clean up your mess. Remove pressure from your brake pedal. Let's make our way up into the engine compartment. Along where the battery would be is where the master cylinder is located. This is what houses your brake fluid. If yours is dirty like ours is here, it's important to make sure you clean it down so no debris makes its way inside of the brake fluid system. Now that this is clean, we'll take hold of it, lift it up and away. Go ahead and give the steel a quick inspection. Typically, if it looks like that, you can just press it back in. Double check to make sure it's not swollen or dislodged in any way. Set that cover aside. The next thing we'll do is top off the brake fluid up to the maximum line with clean .3 brake fluid. Take your cap and start it on there. You don't need to tighten it up. Pause here and make your way back into the wheel well. At this point, we'll be using our 8mm headed wrench. Open up this bleeder screw. Wait for a steady trickle of fluid and then close it off. At this point, we have a steady trickle of fluid coming out of here. Go ahead and close that off with your 8mm headed wrench. Pump up the brake pedal, and at that point, we'll continue on with a manual brake bleed. Now that we've completed installing the flex hose, it's important to bleed the front brake. To bleed the system, it might be easiest using a second person. We want that second person inside of the vehicle preparing to pump up the brake. While doing so, they're going to press that brake pedal down to the floor 3 times. On the 3rd time, they're going to hold it. While holding pressure, I'll be opening up this bleeder screw. We should be watching for fluid to make its way out. Typically, you will see a couple little air bubbles making their way out at the same time. We need to continue this process until there's no air in the system. Any air in the system will cause a braking issue. Go ahead and pump up the brake pedal, please.
Hold it.
While they're holding this, let's open it. We got quite a bit of air on that. Go ahead and pump up the brake pedal again, please.
Hold it. Forward.
Pump.
Hold it. Forward.
You can release the brake pedal. At this point, we bled the brakes, and 2 times in a row, I saw that I had straight fluid coming out with no air bubbles. I feel confident that there's no air inside of this caliper. If for some reason you're unsure if there's any air inside of this area, continue the process. Otherwise, go ahead and clean up your mess. Let's clean this down, reinstall our cover. Back up under the hood, it's time to refill that master cylinder one last time. We'll top it off with our brand new .3 brake fluid up to that maximum line. Continue on with reinstalling the cover. When you do so, you need to make sure it's completely secured so no dirt or moisture make its way inside your braking system. Let's get the wheel on here. At this point, we'll start on all of our 19mm lug nuts, bottom them out, get the wheel safely back on the ground, and then you can torque each one of these to 100 foot-pounds. With the wheel back on the ground, we'll be torquing these in a crisscross manner. Torqued.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.